Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining yet another one of our wonderful virtual town halls hosted by the Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition. It is lovely to be with all of you today. Waiting for just a minute because I'm watching just a couple other people pop in here. So welcome to those of you that just hopped in. Again, this is our virtual town hall with the Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition. It's so nice to be able to gather with all of you virtually to continue to kind of build our community and to continue to network with each other, resource with each other, learn best practices together, stay connected in this ministry that we are all engaged in and that we all love. Just thank you for your commitment to being a part of this community and advancing our mission forward for all of us to come together in jail and prison ministry, support one another, resource one another. Today, I am really excited to welcome Erica Cedrone from Catholic Extension, who's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the things that Catholic Extension is doing that's related to the world of restorative justice and related to ways in which Catholic Extension helps smaller dioceses to be able to do things. So Erica Cedrone is the Assistant Vice President of Mission at Catholic Extension. She's a graduate of St. Anselm College in New Hampshire. Erica moved to Mexico to help organize and run a girls' orphanage in a poor community outside of Mexico City. Inspired to help underprivileged Hispanic families, Erica taught Spanish and was an administrator in inner city Catholic high schools in Dallas and in Boston. In 2004, Erica was part of the leadership team to convert a Boston area Catholic school into a Cristo Rey model school. In 2008, Erica was hired by the Boston Catholic Schools Foundation as the director for Hispanic outreach and increased Hispanic enrollment in Boston Catholic schools by over 25%. Erica began working for Catholic Extension in 2013, focusing on major strategic initiatives. In 2016, Erica helped Catholic Extension launch a new initiative through a partnership with Loyola University of Chicago. And this is what she'll be talking a little bit about with us today. The Restorative Justice Ministry Certificate Scholarship Program offers an enriching educational opportunity for pastoral workers who are involved in ministries where they directly encounter the mental, physical, and spiritual health needs of the incarcerated and those who care for them. Now welcoming their 5th cohort, this program has invited over 80 participants for a hands-on educational opportunity to meet incarcerated men and women, learn about health issues that exist in incarcerated populations and their families, including trauma, explore innovative legal remedies that address the deficiencies in the criminal justice system, and ultimately provide strategies for expanding parish-based prison ministries to address the burgeoning need of this community. So Erica, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and being with our virtual community of jail and prison ministers across the U.S. I will turn it over to you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. As Joe mentioned, I've been working at Catholic Extension for several years now, and I feel like it's a blessing to be able to work within so many dioceses and with so many amazing people. And so today I was hoping to talk a little bit about not just the Restorative Justice program that we offer. It's a strategic initiative that we at Catholic Extension began several years ago, but also talk a little bit about Catholic Extension itself, because many people don't know or have never heard. I actually, before I started, had never heard of Catholic Extension. And that's partially because I don't live in what we call an extension diocese, which I can tell you a little bit about. I live in Boston, and here we don't have the financial needs that many of our dioceses present every single day to their communities, where they're in need of basic financial support just to keep the lights on, let's say, in a building. So we at Catholic Extension are focused on providing support and funding for those that are most in need. So I thought I'd talk a little bit today about Catholic Extension, what we do, why we do it. I do feel like there will be some overlap. I'll talk a little bit about that between much of the ministries that you all do and just in our general funding area, and then talk a little bit, as Joe mentioned, about the Restorative Justice program that we offer through Loyola. So if you want to put on the slides, Joe.
Is that showing the right thing, Erica?
Yeah, that's it. So Catholic Extension we're based out of Chicago. Again, not a what we would consider an extension diocese. It is, but our main office is in downtown Chicago, and we're a national fundraising organization. And we're really committed to supporting and strengthening the Catholic Church in 4 dioceses across the United States. So we provide funding and resources to dioceses and parishes through programs and services that invest in people, infrastructure, and ministries. And all of our support is given based on need, on passion, and the commitment to grow the Catholic faith. So we've been around since 1905, and we've distributed more than $600 million to communities across the US. Joe, if you want to go to slide number 2, or yeah, perfect. Great. So as you can see from this map, these are what we consider the extension dioceses. And as I mentioned, I actually live in Boston, and our main office is in Chicago. But we do support 86 dioceses, and the funding, as you can see, is sort of spread throughout the entire United States. And we focus on isolated and or financially under-resourced dioceses, and we call them extension dioceses, and they're reviewed and approved by our Board of Governors every year. And so to be an extension diocese, there's a couple things that we look at when we're reviewing it, again, every year when it goes to our board. And some of the things that we look at, because you may look at this map and say, why aren't we on there? You know, my diocese isn't represented. So there's a couple things that we look at. One is how many Catholics, if Catholics represent the religious minority. If there are a lot of Catholics, but very little institutional Catholic presence, so like not many ordained leaders or Catholic schools or church buildings. If there's like a growing Catholic population, but limited financial means to support that growth. If the Catholics are spread throughout great geographical distances, making like pastoral outreach really difficult. Alaska is a great example of that, where many of our priests and the bishop have to have their flying license because they have to fly from one mass. They give mass at one mass, and they have to fly 800 miles to give another mass at another location. And then another one would be dioceses that are facing economical hardships, like, for example, the hurricane destruction in Puerto Rico and bankruptcy and that sort of thing. So those would be some of the things that we take into consideration when we're reviewing each year who is considered a mission diocese. And as I mentioned, there's 86. Our mission at Catholic Extension, and it's part of our mission statement, is to work in solidarity with the people in America's poorest regions to build up vibrant and transformative Catholic faith communities. So a lot of people will ask, like, well, how do you do that? Part of what we do is we provide resources, and sometimes that's funding, to develop leaders, ministries, and facilities. And that can be applied through our general funding, as well as our strategic initiatives. So Joe, if you want to turn, thanks. So our general funding guidelines, and I thought this would be something important to talk about, again, because I feel like there's always some overlap, especially in a lot of the ministries that you all are doing. You may say, oh, that actually kind of applies to me. Maybe I could apply for that or get some funding for that. So they're applied for through the diocese. So an extension diocese, we have a contact in each diocese. Usually that individual or organization or diocese would reach out and say, okay, wow, this came across our desk. This might be something you're interested in. They would apply through us and then get the funding that way. And here are the categories. One would be building foundation. and that funds the operation of ministries that extend the basic like church presence to some of the most under-resourced communities. Building leaders, which obviously, as you can read, funds education and training of lay and ordained leaders. Building churches and other facilities, which I mentioned, like we're doing in Puerto Rico right now, rebuilding churches. Engaging young Catholics, that supports ministries that provide faith formation for children, teens, young adults, and families. We do a lot with Hispanic ministry. Building capacity, funds initiatives that helps the church increase the fundraising capabilities. We do have some the sort of development grants where we pay for a development director in the diocese to help bring in more funds and do some capital campaigns. Enhancing pastoral and social ministry, which obviously funds a variety of pastoral and social outreach efforts from the church. So in addition to these 6 types of funding opportunities, we also work with partner organizations to proactively support Catholic communities in these extension dioceses. And these Catholic organizations and Catholic universities offer the diocese that we support programs and resources that would otherwise pretty much be unattainable due to either cost or their geographical location, let's say. Some of the institutions that we work with are University of Notre Dame, Loyola, Fordham, Boston College, and through those we're able to provide opportunities both educationally and spiritually for many of the people who serve in our diocese. So out of this general funding, we have a separate subsection of strategic initiatives. And those initiatives allow us to multiply the impact of our donors' gifts while also providing an opportunity for the diocese to access top-level programs that would be otherwise outside of their financial capacity. So I think it's important for me to mention a few of our focus areas for our strategic initiatives, since there's always, again, overlap here. And many of our participants in programs, for example, let's say one that supports Hispanic ministry, they might participate in our Restorative Justice because they're working with people along the border and deportees and that sort of stuff. And so they see that the Restorative Justice program would be beneficial in their current ministry. Or it might be a sister's salary that we fund who says, I'm starting a young adult program here at my parish. I need some support. I'd like to take the pastoral ministry certification program or something. So we do see a lot of people that come in through either general funding or in other strategic programs and then are able to sort of piggyback on other programs. So one area, I know there's no slide for this, but one area of our strategic funding is the supporting youth and Catholic education. So that provides resources to increase the skills and the impact of the Catholic young adult leaders in the United States. We don't provide direct funding for Catholic schools. My background, as Joe mentioned, is in Catholic schools, but we do provide a lot of support for after-school programs, leadership for principals, for superintendents, and that sort of thing. Another focus would be fostering long-term growth, and that's like fostering sustainability for Catholic institutions in the United States. Educating clergy is another one of our strategic initiatives, and that provides resources to increase the skills and the impact of clergy in the United States. And then advancing church leaders, which is funding positions or providing education to increase the skills and the impact of the Catholic Church leadership in the United States. So some of those examples, and that's sort of where the Restorative Justice falls for us, would be, we would do a lot of Hispanic ministry support, pastoral ministry support, Restorative Justice would fall into there. And so that's what I'm gonna focus on next, Joe, if you wanna turn the slide. So a couple years ago, we had gotten into a conversation with Loyola. We were doing it was a health and pastoral, oh God, it had a really long title and I can't remember, but it was about nutrition and health and providing those type of support services to different communities in mission dioceses. And we were getting a lot of donors that were asking questions about jail ministry, restorative justice ministry, and what are we doing, especially along the border. And out of that grew a conversation with Loyola. And that nutrition, health pastoral health courses sort of morphed into this restorative justice program, and it has been a huge success. So we started it about 5 years ago, and just to read sort of the basic premises, is Restorative Justice Ministry Certification Initiative that we offer allows participants to directly encounter the mental, physical, and spiritual health needs of the incarcerated and those who care for them. And this is through a partnership, as you can see, with Loyola University of Chicago. It's around 20 participants that go to the Water Tower downtown, and they spend a week of classes. They meet incarcerated men and women. They learn about the mind, body, and spirit health issues that exist in incarcerated populations. And then by extension, their families that are waiting for them on the outside. And the goal is ultimately to provide strategies for creating prison-based ministries that support mental, physical, and spiritual and educational support for people within their community. And as I mentioned, it's pretty, we usually have a waiting list every year, and there's always a large number of people that attend, and then the following year we'll send other people that are working with them in their ministry. So for us, it's been a joy because we'll see, and actually in just a minute, Joe, when I have you switch slides, the sister who I'll talk about happened to be in the picture when I was making these slides, runs a program, and everybody in her program has now attended this. So it sort of creates a cohesion between, in this particular group, a program where everybody's sort of on the same page and is taking the same classes. And we'll see that too. And we'll have, for example, the Diocese of Fresno, we had 8 or 9 different prison ministry ministers come in, take these classes over 2 or 3 years. And although they're spread throughout the diocese, they're all sort of a network working together. So if you want to turn the slide. Thanks, Joe. So this is a hands-on educational opportunity, and it really allows the participants to not only visit and interact with the inmates. They go to Cook County Jail, which was for them, I know, a very impactful visit. But it also, the classes explore that like really innovative legal remedies that address the deficiencies in the criminal justice system. And they ultimately provide strategies for expanding a lot of the parish-based prison ministries. And they're trying to address a lot of those rapidly growing needs within their community. So organizations, as you can see, are such as the Colby House, which is in the Archdiocese of Chicago, Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation. That's where they sort of really address the dehumanizing aspects of prisons, and they work to restore individuals and communities with self-respect. So these are a lot of the programs that, while taking these classes, visiting these hands-on visitations, they're also able to participate and learn from these other wonderful programs. All of the tuition is paid for. Traveling and housing into Chicago is also entirely included. We just ask for the participants to have a passion for this ministry. Many of our participants are either brand new to restorative justice. They've recognized a need in their community. They see that nothing is being done, and they want to step up to answer that call. Or we have people that have been doing this for 20, 30 years. So having that group of individuals together, imagine being able to sit in a room as a new, someone who's just finding interest in this and sitting next to someone who's been doing it for 25 years. And for us, having them all come from very similar style, similar type of backgrounds. I mean, sitting next to someone who's from the Archdiocese of Boston, where they have plenty of money to work with and do their ministry, where I come from the Diocese of Yakima, Washington, and we don't have any budget whatsoever. So to be in a room where everybody is on the same page and has the same struggles, the conversation really does allow for all of these people, when they gather, to network and resource. It's been a blessing. We usually open this up for applications in, when do we open it this year? I think we opened it in May. And it usually happens in September or October. This year it'll be September. And again, we have about 20 people that are coming. So I mentioned poor Sister Kathleen in this photo. I'm going to talk about her a lot. Wasn't my intention. Her picture just came up. I was like, oh, this is a great picture. And as I put it on there, you know what, I should tell them about some of the wonderful work her program is doing. She's in the Diocese of Bismarck in North Dakota. And she came to our program 3 years ago. And I was able to go out and actually visit the ministry that she does. It's called Ministry on the Margins in North Dakota, and it's pretty impactful. If you want to turn the slide, Joe, I'll talk a little bit about her. So here she is. She sat before the State Judiciary Committee in support of the House Bill 1393, which was requesting restorative justice as an addition to the sentencing alternatives that they had available. So I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio. She's the founder and director of Ministry on the Margins, which is an ecumenical volunteer-based program that serves over 1,000 people a week, along with a food pantry. And it's a very small little area. I mean, to serve 1,000 people a week, when you go there, it's like dead. There's no cars driving around. I mean, so they're driving to get to her. They have a food pantry, street outreach, emergency sheltering. They're involved in spiritual groups in the men's penitentiary and the women's penitentiary and the correctional center. And they offer families and children of the incarcerated support groups and transition groups. And she's been doing this for over 8 years. So I thought I would read to you. She reached out to me and said, oh, I'm going to present and I'll send you a photo and I'll send you my testimony. And I didn't know when she wrote it, almost her entire testimony was about the program that she took at Loyola and how restorative justice and the idea of restorative justice has really changed the way that she and her staff minister. So I thought I would just read to you a little bit of what she wrote. She said, in October 2018, I was invited to participate with 20 others from around the nation in a certification program in restorative justice at Loyola University of Chicago. We spent days in seminars by psychologists, theologians, community leaders, law enforcement, prosecuting, and defense attorneys. But perhaps most profoundly, we spent a day at the Cook County Jail with the sheriff's staff and inmates listening to how participation in restorative justice was seeking to change the mission of the system from punishment to healing and convert the procedure from adversarial to collaborative. We spent a day in the U.S. District Court with the Honorable Nan Nolan and defendants participating in restorative justice sentencing circles, which is another program that we went to visit. They spoke about crime as a violation of people and relationships rather than breaking a law. They focused on putting things right or restoration rather than blame and punishment. Even more profoundly, we spent an afternoon with a member of a family who had lost a loved one in a brutal drug-induced murder by their neighbor. A neighbor boy who had grown up with their child, a family whose close relationship they didn't want to lose in the midst of the devastating loss of both of their sons, one to murder and one to prison. Restorative justice is a tool that seeks to bring people back into relationships with one another and with the broader community. A tool that seeks to bring healing to the victim by including him or her in the sentencing process, not arbitrarily, but face-to-face and eye-to-eye. Restorative justice absolutely doesn't work for every person, every community, or every situation. It is about relationships, and relationships are messy in the best of times, but it is about changing lives rather than doing time, and that's hard work. So I was so impressed, obviously, with her presentation, but that she had really reaped the benefits of some of the educational opportunities and allowed that to impact some of the ministry that she's performing there. So as Joe mentioned, we've had about 80 people attend. It is for us one of our favorite programs. We have 17 different strategic initiatives, and it is one of ours where we constantly have the participants coming back every year. They stay in contact with one another. They've created this wonderful group, like this just widespread net across the country for connections and resources. And so it has been a wonderful blessing, not only to their ministries, but to the dioceses that they serve. So that's a little bit about Catholic Extension and the program that we offer.
That's awesome, Erica. Thank you so much. Appreciate hearing about all of that. I'm curious, just out of sheer curiosity, just the generosity of being able to provide for people's travel, for them to participate, having all this funding access to fund all these various initiatives and mission dioceses and things like that. Where does Catholic Extension get all its funding to be able to be this generous and this lovely in the world?
We are primarily a fundraising organization. So one of the other programs that I run is a sisters program. We have sisters that come from Latin America, and that's funded through Catholic Extension, but it's also funded through the Hilton Foundation. So Hilton donates money, and then we run the program and we provide the additional funding. So a lot of our programs may start out that way. And actually, as I mentioned, this program started off as a nutrition program, and we had a donor that said, "I really feel like this is something that needs," and it's just sort of changed over time when we started addressing really the needs. And so much of what Catholic Extension does is sort of listening to what the diocese, what the bishops, what the community leaders say, and then trying to respond as best as we can and offer the support that they need. And our donors have been really generous, and we have a website, we have a magazine, we have that sort of thing, and a lot of people connect with sisters, seminarians, chaplains. So there are so many donors that see this as a need, and we've been lucky enough to have them continue to support this program over the years, and all of our programs. Yeah,
that's fantastic. And how, if there were somebody that was wanting to apply for funds as a mission diocese, or to potentially apply for the Restorative Justice program, how would they go about doing that? What's the process? Where do they go?
Yeah, might be easiest, I don't know if you're comfortable doing this, is sort of sending out a link to our website, but it's fairly easy. Maybe you can just put it in the chat. It's just catholicextension.org.
Yep. Those links are in the chat, ready to go for folks. Yep.
Oh, look at that. See, yeah. Oh, look at you. Strategic Initiatives, Restorative Justice. Yeah, so when you go on our website, it's pretty easy to follow. At the top, it says who we are, what we do, and you can click on that, and you'll see the map that I presented earlier. But the first steps would be to figure out, what is your need? Does it fit into what we support for our general funding? Let's say you're starting Hispanic ministry in your diocese, and you don't have the funding to start it, you need to hire a director, that sort of thing, that you would reach out to the person in your diocese who is connected to Catholic Extension. There's a list on the website. We work directly with the bishops, but we can't just call a bishop on the phone and say, guess what, we want to start. So we have a contact person that we go through. We call them our primary contact. And generally that person will reach out to us and say, hey, we have this need, how does it fit? And then we can talk them through and say, it probably falls into building leadership. So you'll want to just go in and fill out this general application, put in the amount that you're interested in applying for. And then if you get approved, then they find out within a couple weeks. And there's 2 times a year where they can apply for that general funding. Our strategic initiatives happen on a scheduled basis. So for example, every September, October, the Restorative Justice certification program through Loyola is held. Usually 3 months before that, sometimes 4, we send out the applications and that sort of thing. The way we communicate it with the diocese, and this doesn't always work the best. We send a bulletin out once a month, and it lists, these are the things that are coming up, and it tells them the deadlines and that sort of thing. Now, if that contact is really on top of things, and they see that there is the Latino Enrollment Institute for Catholic School Leaders at the University of Notre Dame, this would be perfect for me to send to the superintendent of schools within my diocese. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes they think to send that link, and sometimes they don't. And so a lot of missed opportunities happen. And more often than not, it's us calling and reminding them, hey, you've participated in this before, or do you know someone? So my suggestion is, especially when I'm talking to people that are doing the ministry, that there is a need and that they want the support and resources, and is to just periodically go on and look on our website. Email me. I run most of the initiatives, that if not, I can connect you with the someone who does, if it's not myself. If you said, oh, this pastoral ministry certification program looks really interesting, how do I just go out finding out a little bit more? And those will happen on a regular basis. So there would be a timeline is when you can apply. And at that point, what I would do is I would say, okay, I'm going to reach out to my primary contact. I know the application is coming up. I'm going to let them know that I'm going to apply. Sometimes the primary contact will say, I'll fill it out for you. I'll do it for you. And sometimes they'll say, you fill it out and then just let me know when you're done. Because we do require, it's standard and they're all accustomed, an endorsement letter from the bishop. So the bishop will basically sign saying, yes, I agree that, Deacon John can attend the Restorative Justice program. So that's basically the process.
And Karen had a question around, in order to be eligible for the Restorative Justice certification program, do you have to be from an existing extension diocese to be eligible, or is there a way in?
Yeah. You have to live in an extension diocese.
Okay.
I know it's tricky and it kills me. Even Loyola, where they're taking the classes in an extension diocese. I don't live in an extension diocese. But because it is, all of our programs are designed to help those communities and organizations and people that are not able to pay for financially these type of programs. Those fundings are specifically geared towards extension diocese. This program, and in some instances our other programs, depending on who we partner with, for example, Latino Enrollment Institute at Notre Dame or Restorative Justice, others can participate as well, but the funding isn't there. This program is about $6,800 per participant. That includes housing in downtown Chicago, which can be crazy, transportation, meals. They do like an excursion in downtown Chicago one evening, the buses, all of that's included. So I would imagine, connecting with Loyola, the price might be lower. But for us, that's the total cost for one participant for this program.
Very good. Well, I'm gonna open us back up here. Curious about, just want to open it up freely since it is a town hall discussion to anybody who, if you wanted to unmute yourself, if you had a question specifically for Erica or a comment based on what you have heard, but just to give you a chance to chime in as well, ask your questions or to share about your experiences with this kind of thing as well. Is there anybody that was interested in chiming in or asking a question?
I'd be interested too to find out if anybody here has attended, because I do see one or two names that look familiar to me.
Do we have anybody that's completed this program that's on here?
Maybe won't say anything, but I do recognize a couple names. And I think that, again, there's so many crossovers. So I'm sure many of you have encountered Catholic Extension, especially if you live in a mission diocese in one way or another.
Erica?
Hi, Lisa. I know you are with Sister Kathleen, I believe. Sister Kathleen Atkinson, Ministry in the Margins that I just talked about. And
Nope,
Lisa,
I'm in Kalamazoo.
You're in Kalamazoo. Okay, so then you're with Kristen Cora, I think, that wrote in. Yes.
Right, yeah, and we're one of the newbie teams that's just getting started.
Great, yes.
Very good. And Father Gary, it sounded like you had a question for Erica?
Yes, you brought up funding. One of the major challenges for us as a diocese, we are an extension diocese, is priests that will actually be able to go into the prisons for us to have, their expenses, covered in order to do it, in addition to, rather than it just being a parish expense, because most of our parishes here are very small. So it was an additional expense. Is there a way that we could seek funding to provide, that financial aid to get more priests available to go in?
Yeah, that could be seen as sort of like a stipend or salary support, or and that would fall under some of our general funding. And I would encourage you, again, one of the reasons why I talked about sort of the funding guidelines for Catholic Extension is there are probably a million ways that you could see where you fit into some of those categories. And it's just a matter of sort of going online, looking to see, okay, this does kind of fit. Reach out to our contact in your diocese and say, this is what we're interested in. We want to expand our ministry, sort of write it out and say, here's how we envision it. It would cost $4,000 or $6,000 or whatever it might be. And then ask your contact person to fill out the application. For the most part, our applications are very simple. They're not difficult or really all that time consuming. So, and the worst case scenario is you would get a no. So for 15 minutes just to fill out an application. And we're pretty generous when it comes to ministries because we do know that the impact can be felt many times over. So I would definitely suggest going in, looking at what the requirements are and see where it fits.
Thank you.
Erica, I had a question about, if I wasn't from an extension diocese, but maybe in my capacity through my parish or even through my diocese, if I was interested in sort of, for lack of a better way to say this, kind of recreating a version of what you are offering to kind of implement in my own community, some sort of restorative justice ministry experience that connected me to local entities. Like, is there someone that from Catholic Extension or from Loyola that would be willing to consult with somebody or to kind of share about the model at all, or if someone was interested in kind of creating something in their own diocese? Is there a particular contact person, or is that something that someone would be open to? Or
So my response to that would be that Loyola does a really good job of creating this program, and they're very good at creating it in a way, like I had mentioned earlier, where it feels applicable to everybody. So I think reaching out to Loyola, since they're the experts, reaching out to Loyola, and we do it through IPS, which is the Institute of Pastoral Studies. The dean there her name is Mariana Miller, and she's wonderful. You can email her, but I would just say email me and I'll make an introduction. I'm happy to do that. And just she could give you some advice on how to implement it, best ways to implement it. There is a lot of potential for this program, especially now that everybody's a little bit more comfortable with Zoom, offering an online speaker to talk about some of the topics. Obviously, the hands-on piece for us is obviously very important. We didn't host this last year because it fell during the pandemic, and we could have done something virtually, but going to see the inmates and going into the courthouse and meeting with the family, like Sister Kathleen had mentioned, it's a big piece of it. So I think it would be missing that, but having a speaker, even having Mariana or someone come to speak at one of these town halls would be great.
That's a great idea. Erica, I got a question from someone. You mentioned that the diocese that you work with has a specific contact person or point person that's connected to Catholic Extension. How would someone determine who that person is for their particular diocese, particularly if they're already an extension diocese?
We have a list on our website. When you go on the website, I believe it's under the tab for how do we fund, or one of those tabs at the top. It's pretty easy. It'll say, please contact our primary contact in your diocese, and you just click on the link and it pulls up a spreadsheet. You go down, you find your diocese, and then it'll give their name and their email, and that's the person to reach out to. And I would, again, I'm happy to field any of those questions. If it's just easier to send me an email and say, hey, I'm in the diocese of Des Moines, or Des Moines is no longer a diocese, so I'm in the diocese of Laredo, and I'm interested in this, who do I talk to? And then I can send you the contact information.
Okay.
Do an introduction.
Can we maybe put your email in the chat? Either you can do that or Jared, so that people, because I think there's some people that are having trouble finding their specific person. So maybe just going straight to you to help with them would be great.
Yeah, I think Perry had a question.
Yes, Father Perry.
I didn't have a question, and nor do I live in a mission diocese. I'm living working in Los Angeles. But I have worked in mission dioceses, and I actually have received some support grants from Extension. I worked in Arkansas, which is clearly one of the mission dioceses. And then actually, I also I got a grant from while I was in New Orleans, which I think was temporarily made a mission diocese right after Katrina went through.
Yeah.
So, but I do want to thank you for your presentation. I am very interested in learning more about that Restorative Justice Ministry Certificate Institute, and I appreciate hearing that because I'm currently getting involved in or doing jail ministry here in LA, and I know we've got some other folks who are interested in it as well. And I appreciate the information about that.
Great, that sounds wonderful.
Eric, I got another question from Mary about with all the kind of categories and things that Catholic Extension funds, is there funding available for programs specifically that train chaplains for prison ministry across many dioceses? Would that fit into any of those categories?
No, a diocese, again, you can apply for funding through one of those general funding categories. For sure, I know that we provide some salary support for chaplains and that sort of thing. And we do have many who will attend the Restorative Justice certification program, but we don't, there's nothing specific. When we do have seminarian, we do provide seminarian education. We pay for seminarians to go to Mundelein, for example, but we don't have anything specific for chaplains unless it's a direct request.
Gotcha. The other thing, Erica, and I know that you may not know the particulars of this. You and I had talked about this, but of all things, when I was on vacation in Hawaii, I was watching. There was some sort of religious channel that I was flipping through, and it was a documentary on a Catholic Extension funded mission diocese, and the particular program that mission diocese was offering was a transportation ministry where it was somewhere in the South. I can't remember exactly where, but it was this particular mission diocese with funding from Catholic Extension twice a year was chartering these big, huge buses and loading up family members of incarcerated people and driving them the long distance to the prison so that family members who lived very, very far away could have access to, being able to see their loved ones and to have that transportation provided for them. I know you didn't necessarily know a ton about that, but it sounds like that was, one of many possibilities that, an existing mission diocese, but it was, they had the cameras on the buses with the folks and were interviewing people about how much they appreciated this. I think maybe it was in Louisiana. Do you know anything about that or?
First of all, Hawaii sounds amazing. Why are you watching TV when you should be on the beach?
It was at night. The fun was over.
Yeah, so that's a very typical request. So because we work in such under-resourced dioceses, it's a very typical request for us. So I encourage people to be innovative and think outside the box, because sometimes those are the ones that appeal to Catholic Extension, but to donors as well. So I gave the example earlier of Alaska. So, and I mentioned this, but the bishop and the priest all have to have their flying licenses, and the cost of gas and to maintain those prop planes is ridiculous. So one of their requests is for funding to help keep those maintained, to pay for the gasoline. It sounds like such a silly request, but without that, they are not able to get to the church to offer mass. And so that is is a very typical request. We have was a chicken. Father Perry had said he was in, I believe, Arkansas. So there was a chicken coop in Hamburg that they had basically had fallen to shambles, and they wanted to make it into a church. And so they requested funds to put a floor down, and the rest of the community would come together and build the walls. And so we paid for the floor, and then I think we did for every dollar that they raised, we matched it. And so they were able to sort of build this church out of an old chicken coop factory. And so a lot of our requests will come from that. We have an after-school program, talk about transportation, that people were having a hard time getting to. And so they had requested to help pay for some of the buses for this Catholic after-school program. And so those are things that I know Catholic Extension realizes that you're unable to do your ministry, you're unable to make an impact and reach those that need it the most without, I mean, $10,000 is a lot of money, but that $10,000 impact just is like a ripple effect. And so to be able to provide that funding for a minister to go out and to serve those in need, it's worth every penny to us. So to apply for those funds, to think of innovative ways, as long as they fit within the funding guidelines, and most of the needs within mission dioceses do fit within funding guidelines. And I would say for the most part, if a diocese is consistent with it, almost everything sort of gets approved eventually. So if it makes sense and it fits, a lot of those funds are available. Every dollar that we bring in, we give out, every single one. So it's important that we honor our donors by supporting the ministries and the needs of all of our communities.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions, either to throw in the chat or to unmute yourself and dive right in? Any other questions for Erica about Catholic Extension, about the Restorative Justice Ministry, or any of the efforts of mission dioceses?
I would make a suggestion too. If people have a chance to go to our website, on the very, very, very bottom, it says, it's just the easiest place to find it. There's like a list of funding. It says strategic initiatives. If you click on that, it'll bring you to the page that was put up in the chat. You can see all of our strategic initiatives. Those are the ones where you can get your pastoral ministry certificate, your restorative justice. You can attend Catholic leadership training. We have a drug and alcohol abuse and trauma and workshops and that sort of stuff. On that site, if you look down the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a lot of those things. You can just click on them and read about them. And it usually towards the bottom, it'll tell you this is closed right now. It'll usually open up at this time. Contact this person on the mission team to support. And so you can always reach out to myself, whoever's listed, and say, hey, I just saw this. Do you know what's going to come up? What's the availability? Can you put me on your list just to receive the notification when it comes in? That way I can notify my primary contact in the diocese. And then from there, you're able to sort of just see everything that we offer. Those are the strategic initiatives, not the general funding that you can apply for, but the strategic ones. As we're always looking for participants in a lot of our programs. Restorative Justice, we usually get all 20 because it's only 20, but some of our programs we're looking for participants. It's fully funded. Everything is fully funded for the most part. So come join.
That's fantastic. And Jared threw that link up on the strategic initiatives in the chat, so you've got the direct link to go on there and explore what Erica's talking about on your own. Any other final comments or questions before we kind of switch to some commercials for some upcoming CPMC events? I just want to give people a chance to put in final thoughts or final questions. Well, very good. Well, it looks like people are feeling satisfied. Erica, just on behalf of Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition, just want to thank you for being present with us today and sharing all of this. And just what an honor to be able to learn more about the work of Catholic Extension across the United States, particularly in regions where things are underfunded and things are more rural. And so for Catholic Extension to be able to step in and help make sure that these ministries can flourish and come into existence and We're just exceptionally grateful for that and are grateful for your time with us. So thank you for being here.
For having me. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love talking about extension. So this is Restorative Justice Ministry. It's so important. It's so needed. It's so needed right now. And so I'm just thankful for all of the work that you all do. And we're here to help in whatever ways we can. So please feel free to send me an email. I check my email every day. So I'll usually respond within a couple hours. So
that's fantastic. And Erica's email is in the chat there for everybody. So feel free to grab that before we close out so that you can contact Erica and ask whatever follow-up questions. That would be great. And now, commercials. We have all kinds of wonderful things that are coming up.
Joe, I think Betty had a question.
What's that?
Yes, I'm sorry. I wasn't able, I just got in about 11:30. Is this, I didn't hear Erica's presentation. Is that, is this recorded?
Yes, it is. So, and we will, we'll eventually get this put up on our town hall webpage on the CPMC website. So you'll be able to review the full town hall at another time once we get that up on our site.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Glad you could join us. So yeah, we've got some new things that are coming up later in the month. Jared is putting some links in the chat. The next thing that's coming up is our next webinar, which is next week, July 14th, same time. And we are featuring Father Reagan Shriver from Catholic Charities USA. And he's going to be speaking on giving us an overview of mental illness. Of course, so many of the people that we work with in our jails and prisons are struggling with various mental health issues, and that is a major part of our world. So having access to Father Shriver and kind of giving an overview of that and how that plays out in the particular context where we minister, I think will be very helpful. And then Karen, I believe is this a two-part series? Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yes, it is. The second one will be in September. It'll be our second webinar. And it is, mental illness is there's so much. He teaches a whole course on it, on how to minister to people that are suffering from or have mental illness. And so he's going to do it in two buckets. And he'll open it up and kind of give us an overview and make it, it will be very ministerially specific. And then the second one will be, how do we minister to? So more getting into techniques. So he's a wealth of knowledge and information and a practitioner. So I very much encourage you to attend. And this has been when we bring all of the, we surveyed, and this was the top issue that ministers were seeking information and assistance with. So we look forward to having you.
Yeah, so please join us for that part one, knowing that part two will come up in September, and that way we will have a lot of time and space to be able to engage that issue. So very grateful to Father Reagan for that. And then coming up a little later on July 22nd, we will do our reentry focused town hall. Father Perry, you'll be happy to know we're featuring St. Vincent de Paul, as St. Vincent de Paul District Council out of Attleboro. And they have a special reentry immersion program that they are involved in, that they're going to be sharing about. So that'll be Peter Courtwright, who's the program director there, and Diana Reeves, the facilitator. And we're honored to have Father Zach Prasuti, a Jesuit priest from Thrive for Life Prison Project, who will actually be facilitating that conversation, but with Peter and Diana presenting on their district council's reentry efforts in their region. And so again, just another chance to get exposed to what other areas are doing in the area of reentry, best practices, what's working well, and a chance for us to ask them our questions too, and perhaps glean some of their practices into our own efforts. So please feel free to sign up for that. Again, you can go to catholicprisonministries.org and you can register for these right there on the website. Or hopefully you're all on our MailChimp e-newsletters, so where these get emailed directly to you and you can sign up for them. If you're not on that email list, you can also register to be on that email list on our website so that you get notified of all these updated things as well. Just exciting things that are coming up. And we're just very delighted that you were all able to join us today. Again, Erica, thank you for being with us. Just an honor to learn about your programming. And I think that is all. We're going to kick you loose 5 minutes early. But thank you for being here. It is a pleasure, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. God bless everybody.